My name is Emma, and I am a Video 2 student at Harbor High School. I took Video 1 last year, and that's most of my experience making movies. In my first year of making movies, one of the first movies I ever made was a movie called Ivy, and it was about this girl who's a serial killer, and the way that she picks her victims is she takes them on dates and then murders them. It was very stylized, which made it really fun to do because we could just kind of do whatever we wanted as far as not using a tripod goes. And we used the 50mm lens, which makes everything look artsy. If you're not using a tripod, which you should use a tripod, but if you're not using a tripod, definitely make sure that you're not too shaky. There's an extent to using a tripod where it's artsy and it looks cool, and there's an extent to using a tripod where it's hard to watch and you can't tell what's going on. And it was kind of finding the balance between that we had to figure out before we could really go on with filming everything. 50mm looks better, but isn't as easy to use. You definitely have to, when you're using the 50, you really have to be consciously thinking about what you're doing with it. Whereas with a regular lens, it's kind of like, camera's on. If you're filming someone who is speaking, and you need to be able to hear them in your movie, you have to actually think about the audio. You can't just, if you just think, oh, the camera will just pick it up. The camera will not just pick it up. You will go into the editing process and you will not be able to hear anything they are saying. There's a lot of microphones that are really easy to use, and I highly suggest using those because going into Premiere and having all these shots that are such great shots and this whole scene you have that you have so much to work with and then you can't hear any of it, it's very frustrating. When you are filming a scene that in your final cut it is going to be silent and it's just going to be action happening on the screen, don't think to yourself, oh, we'll just cut the sound out. We can have music playing, we can have whoever's filming talking and telling the person what to do. Because when you just cut out all the sound, it doesn't sound like a silent room, it sounds like you just cut out all the sound. Because even when you're watching a movie and there's a scene where there's no music playing, there's no dialogue, you can hear their footsteps. You can hear them putting the pen on the table. You can hear them closing the door. But it's not stuff that you are thinking about when you're watching the movie. But when you take out all of that, it's really noticeable. Don't disregard sound, don't just not think about it, because you will regret that decision. We lost a costume in between shootings. One of our actors had an allergic reaction to the shirt he bought at Goodwill. So we had to find one that looked exactly the same as the other one, because we didn't want to have to reshoot things. Plan everything you're gonna do. Because if you don't plan, you're gonna go to film and you're gonna sit there and you're gonna think, well, let's film it, and then you're not gonna have anywhere to go from there. Even if that means deciding on just an order you're gonna film the scenes in, that will still help you a lot more than just jumping into it with, we're gonna film this now, because you don't know where to start. Have fun.